Nyxara Valaith stood at the edge of the ceremonial platform, her fingers trembling against the folds of her midnight blue gown. She wasn't supposed to be here. Not among nobles, not among alphas, certainly not under the gaze of him. Alpha King Ziraith Duscrin. He stood at the center of the gathering like a god carved from shadow and steel, tall, mercilessly handsome, draped in black ceremonial armor that gleamed under the moonlight. His presence alone silenced the crowd. Cold, untouchable, absolute. Nyxara lowered her eyes. Don't look at him, she told herself, but her wolf stirred, soft at first, then violently. A sudden, searing heat ripped through her chest. Nyxara gasped. Her breath hitched. Her heart slammed wildly against her ribs as something ancient, something undeniable snapped into place. A thread. No, a chain. Her eyes shot up and met his. Time stopped. Ziraith froze. For the first time that night, the Alpha King looked shaken. The bond pulsed between them. Wild, raw, consuming. Her mate, her soul recognized him instantly. A soft, broken whisper escaped her lips. Mate. The word barely left her mouth before the entire courtyard erupted into murmurs. Ziraith's expression hardened. His golden eyes, once filled with shock, turned glacial, calculating, rejecting. Nyxara's stomach dropped. No! Her wolf whimpered inside her. No, no, no! He stepped forward. Each step felt like a countdown to execution. Nyxara's breath trembled as hope flickered inside her chest. He stopped in front of her, close enough for her to feel his warmth, close enough for her soul to ache, for a moment, just a moment. She thought she saw hesitation. Then his voice rang out across the courtyard, cold, merciless, final. I, Alpha King Ziraith Duscrin, reject you as my mate, the world shattered. Nyxara didn't scream, she didn't cry, she simply broke. The bond snapped violently, like a blade tearing through her soul. Agony exploded through her chest. Her knees hit the ground. Gasps echoed around her. Some pitied, some laughed. And above it all, a soft, satisfied chuckle. Nyxara turned her head weakly. Serelith Vaughn stood among the nobles. Her crimson lips curled into a smile of pure triumph. Of course this was planned. Nyxara's fingers dug into the stone beneath her. Her vision blurred. Her wolf howled in pain, retreating deep inside her consciousness, abandoning her. Even her wolf couldn't bear the rejection. Ziraith didn't move to help her, didn't look at her again. As if she were nothing, as if she had never mattered, as if the bond meant nothing. Remove her, he ordered. Just like that. Nyxara let out a weak, shattered laugh. Not loud, not hysterical, just empty. The guards approached, but before they could touch her, she whispered, her voice hoarse, trembling, but filled with something new, something dark. You will regret this. Ziraith paused, just slightly. But he didn't turn back, and that would be his greatest mistake, because the girl he rejected that night would not be the woman he faced again. The gates of Duscrin Keep slammed shut behind her with a finality that echoed through Nyxara's bones. It sounded like a verdict, like a burial. Nyxara stumbled forward into the wilderness, barefoot, bleeding and hollow. No escort, no mercy, no name, just exile. The cold night air bit into her skin, slicing through the thin ceremonial gown that now clung to her like a cruel reminder of everything she had lost. Twigs snapped beneath her unsteady steps as she walked blindly into the forest, deeper and deeper, as if the darkness might swallow her whole. Maybe that would be easier. Maybe that would hurt less. Her chest tightened violently. The place where the bond had once lived felt wrong, empty, but not quiet, never quiet. Pain pulsed there, raw, jagged, alive. Each breath scraped through her lungs like broken glass. Her wolf was silent, too silent. Erindra, Nyxara whispered weakly, her voice trembling as she pressed a shaking hand to her chest. Please, nothing, no warmth, no presence. No answer. A broken laugh escaped her lips. So you've abandoned me too? The forest stretched endlessly before her, a labyrinth of shadows and whispers. The silver glow of the moon filtered through the towering trees, casting eerie patterns across the ground. Hours passed, or maybe minutes. Time had lost meaning. Nyxara's legs finally gave out. Her body collapsed against the base of a massive, ancient tree. The rough bark scraped her skin, grounding her just enough to remind her she was still alive, unfortunately. Her vision blurred as exhaustion dragged her under. But then, a sound, low, predatory, a growl. Nyxara's eyes snapped open. Across the clearing, a pair of glowing eyes stared back at her, then another and another. Rogue wolves, not pack-bound, not controlled, savage, hungry. Her breath hitched. Of course this was how it would end. Rejected, alone, devoured like nothing. The first wolf stepped forward, its lips curling back to reveal rows of sharp, glistening teeth. Nyxara tried to move. Her body didn't respond. Her limbs felt like stone. Her magic, whatever little she had, was buried beneath the suffocating weight of the rejection. The wolf lunged. Time slowed. Nyxara didn't scream, didn't fight. She simply closed her eyes. This is it. But just as the beast was about to tear into her, something changed. A pulse, deep inside her chest. Not the mate bond, something older, something darker. Her eyes flew open, silver, blinding, glowing with an unnatural light. The air around her cracked. The ground beneath her trembled. The wolf mid-lunge froze, whimpered. Then, without warning, was thrown violently across the clearing as if struck by an invisible force. Nyxara gasped, clutching her chest as the energy surged through her veins like wildfire. The other rogues backed away, their growls turning into uneasy whines. Fear. They were afraid of her. "No," she whispered, her voice shaking as she stared down at her trembling hands. "What is—" A voice, not external, not human. Ancient, feminine, powerful. "You were never meant to break." Nyxara froze. "Arindra?" she breathed. But the presence felt different, bigger, colder, rise. The command slammed into her like thunder, and her body obeyed, despite the pain, despite the exhaustion, despite everything. Nyxara stood. The rogues whimpered louder now, retreating step by step. Her silver eyes burned brighter, her aura shifted, no longer prey, no longer weak. Something else, something they didn't understand. The largest wolf lowered its head in submission, then fled. The others followed. Within seconds, the clearing was silent once more. Nyxara swayed slightly, her strength already fading. "What am I?" she whispered into the night. No answer came this time, only the distant howl of wolves echoing through the forest. Her knees buckled again. This time, she didn't fight it. Her body collapsed back onto the cold earth, her vision dimming at the edges. Darkness crept in, slow, unavoidable. But just before it consumed her, another sound cut through the silence. Not wild, not chaotic, controlled, measured, footsteps, multiple. Nyxara forced her eyes open just enough to see shadows emerging between the trees. Figures, tall, armed, watching her. One of them stepped forward. The others instinctively held back. Even in her fading state, Nyxara could feel it. Power, dominant, terrifying. But steady, not like Zyreth. No, this presence was colder, sharper, deadlier. The man crouched in front of her, his gaze piercing as it swept over her broken form. There was no pity in his eyes, no disgust, only interest, calculation, recognition. "Silver eyes," he murmured, his deep voice quiet but laced with something dangerous. "So the rumors are true?" Nyxara tried to speak, failed, her lips barely moved. Please." She didn't even know what she was asking for. Help? Mercy? Death? The man studied her for a long moment. Then, slowly, he reached out. Not gently, but not cruelly either. His fingers tilted her chin upward, forcing her to meet his gaze. And in that moment, something shifted. Not a mate bond, not fate, something else. A thread, thin, unspoken, but real. His lips curved into the faintest hint of a smile. Dark, knowing, interesting. Nyxara's vision blurred completely now. She felt herself slipping, fading. The last thing she heard before everything went black was his voice. Cold, decisive. Take her. A pause, then quieter. She might be the weapon we've been waiting for. Darkness swallowed her whole. Far behind her, within the walls of Duscrin Keep, Zyreth Duscrin stood rigid on the balcony, his jaw clenched as he stared into the distant forest. Something was wrong. The bond, it wasn't gone. It was changing, twisting, becoming something he couldn't control. His chest tightened sharply. A flicker of something unfamiliar crept into his expression. Unease, for the first time since the rejection, the Alpha King felt it. A whisper of instinct, a warning, a mistake, and far away. in the arms of his greatest enemy. His rejected mate disappeared into the dark. Darkness did not release Nyxara gently. It clung to her, pressed in around her like a suffocating shroud, thick and endless, swallowing every fragment of sound, of thought, of self. But beneath it, something pulsed, slow, ancient, watching. Then, pain. Nyxara gasped sharply as consciousness slammed back into her body. Her lungs dragged in air like she had been drowning, her fingers curling into the rough fabric beneath her. Not earth, not leaves. A bed? Her eyes flew open. The ceiling above her was unfamiliar, high, carved from black stone etched with faint glowing runes that shimmered like trapped moonlight. The air felt different here, heavier, charged, alive. Nyxara's breath hitched as she pushed herself up too quickly, and immediately regretted it. Pain tore through her chest, sharp and vicious, dropping her back against the bed with a broken hiss. The bond. Even now, even after rejection, it still hurt, still existed, still mocked her. Her fingers trembled as they pressed against her sternum. "Why, won't it just disappear?" she whispered hoarsely. "Because it was never meant to be broken." The voice echoed inside her mind again, clearer this time, stronger. Nyxara froze. "Arindra?" A pause. Then, "I am what remains of what you were meant to become." A chill ran down her spine. What does that even mean? The door creaked open. Nyxara's head snapped toward the sound, her body instinctively tensing despite the pain. A woman entered first, tall, sharp-featured, dressed in dark leathers, her expression unreadable. Behind her, 2 guards lingered near the doorway, their eyes flicking toward Nyxara with thinly veiled curiosity. But none of them mattered, because the moment he stepped in, the air changed. It shifted. Nyxara felt it before she fully saw him. Power, not loud, not overwhelming like Zyreth's crushing dominance. No, this was something colder, controlled, like a blade resting against your throat, waiting. Velathrissian. He didn't rush, didn't speak immediately. He simply walked into the room as if everything within it already belonged to him, which it probably did. His dark gaze landed on Nyxara, and this time, fully conscious, she felt it. That strange thread again, not a mate bond, not fate, but something that hummed low beneath her skin. Awareness, recognition, danger. Nyxara straightened slightly despite the weakness in her limbs, her chin lifting on instinct alone. She would not look small again. Not in front of another alpha. Vela stopped at the foot of her bed, studying her in silence. Not her face, not just her condition. No, he was observing her like one would observe a phenomenon, a weapon, or a threat. "You're alive," he finally said, his voice low, smooth, and edged with something unreadable. Nyxara let out a dry, humorless breath. Disappointed? The corner of his mouth twitched, not quite a smile, but close enough to feel dangerous. "If I wanted you dead," he said calmly, "you would not be here. Fair." Nyxara swallowed, her throat suddenly dry. "Where is here?" Shadowfang territory. Her stomach dropped. Enemy land. Of course that's where she would end up. Captured, used, or worse. Nyxara's eyes hardened slightly. Then why am I not in chains? A quiet shift moved through the guards at the door. The woman beside him glanced at Valor, as if waiting for his reaction. Valor, however, only looked amused. "Because," he said, stepping closer, "you are not a prisoner." Nyxara blinked. That was not the answer she expected. "Then what am I?" she asked, her voice lower now. Vela stopped at her bedside, too close. Close enough for her to feel the steady heat of him. Close enough to notice the faint scar cutting across his jaw, the sharp lines of his face, the quiet violence resting beneath his calm exterior. His gaze dropped briefly, to her chest, to the place where the bond throbbed faintly beneath her skin, then back to her eyes. "You," he said softly, "are a mystery." Nyxara's breath caught. Silence stretched between them, heavy, tense. Then he reached out. Her body tensed instantly, but he didn't touch her skin. His fingers hovered just above her collarbone, close enough for her to feel the heat of his hand, not close enough to claim. "Your eyes changed," he murmured. "Silver." Nyxara frowned. "They've always been—" "No." His voice cut through hers. "Certain. You're wrong." Something in her chest tightened. "That's not possible." Valor's gaze darkened slightly. You repelled a pack of rogue wolves while half dead, he continued, without shifting, without training, without control. Nyxara's heart skipped. You saw that? I saw enough. A pause. Then, show me. Her breath stilled. What? Your power. Nyxara let out a soft, disbelieving laugh. I almost died out there. And yet you didn't. His voice lowered, sharpened. Show me. Something in his tone, not a request, a command. It should have made her angry, defiant, but instead, her wolf stirred, not in fear, not in submission, but in response. Nyxara's fingers curled into the sheets as she closed her eyes. I don't know how... You do. That voice again, stronger now, clearer. Stop thinking like prey. Nyxara's breath slowed, in, out. The pain in her chest flickered, shifted, changed. She focused. Not on the bond, but on the other thing, the deeper thing, the thing that had awakened in the forest. And then... it happened. A pulse. The air in the room trembled. The faint runes on the walls flickered. The guards stiffened instantly. Nyxara's eyes snapped open. Silver, brighter this time. Alive. A sharp crack echoed through the room as the glass goblet on the nearby table shattered without being touched. The woman near the door swore under her breath. Vaylor didn't move, didn't react, but his eyes lit with something dark, satisfied. There it is, he murmured. Nyxara gasped as the energy snapped back, leaving her breathless and shaking. What is happening to me? Vaylor straightened slowly, and for the first time, there was no amusement in his expression, only certainty. You were rejected, he said. Nyxara flinched. But instead of breaking, he continued, You awakened. Her throat tightened. That doesn't make sense. It doesn't have to. He stepped back slightly, giving her space, but not distance, never distance. It makes you valuable. The word hit differently than it should have. Not degrading, not dehumanizing, just honest. Nyxara swallowed. So that's it? I'm useful to you? Vaylor tilted his head slightly, studying her again. Then quietly, No, a pause. You're dangerous. Silence. Something shifted between them again, deeper this time, unspoken, unavoidable. Then Vaylor turned away. Rest, he said. Nyxara blinked. That's it, for now. He paused at the doorway. Without looking back, he added, No one will touch you here without my permission. The words settled heavily in the room. A promise. A warning. A claim that wasn't quite a claim. Then he left. The door closed behind him with a soft click. Nyxara sat there, her heart pounding, her body still trembling from the surge of power. Her fingers slowly lifted to her chest again. The bond still hurt, still existed, but beneath it now, something else had taken root, something stronger, something that did not beg, did not break, did not belong. Nyxara's silver eyes flickered faintly in the dim light as her lips parted in a quiet whisper. I won't be weak again. And somewhere deep inside her, Erindra stirred, not wounded, not silent, but awake. Meanwhile, miles away, Zyreth Duscrin staggered slightly, his hand gripping the edge of a stone pillar as a sudden violent pulse tore through his chest. His breath caught, his wolf growled, uneasy. The bond, it flared, burned, changed. His eyes darkened. What are you becoming? He muttered under his breath. But deep down, he already feared the answer, because whatever she was becoming was no longer his to control. Nyxara did not sleep. Not truly. Her body lay still on the obsidian bed, but her mind burned. Fragments of memory, pain, and something darker twisted through her thoughts like shadows with teeth. The rejection, Zyreth's voice, cold, final. I reject you. Her chest tightened violently. But this time, the pain didn't consume her. It fed something. A slow, dangerous heat coiled beneath her ribs. Hungry, waiting, good. The voice purred inside her. Not soft anymore, not distant, satisfied. Nyxara's eyes snapped open. Silver light flickered briefly in the darkness. You're not just my wolf, she whispered. A pause. Then, no. A chill slid down her spine. What are you? The answer came like a blade dragged across bone. I am what they feared you would become. Before Nyxara could respond, the door slammed open. Not gently, not controlled, forcefully. Nyxara sat up instantly, her body reacting before her thoughts could catch up. A man strode into the room. Not Vaylor. This one was broader, louder. His presence aggressive, suffocating in a way that grated against her already frayed instincts. His eyes locked onto her. Dark, suspicious, hostile. "So," he said, voice thick with disdain, "this is the broken mate the Alpha dragged in?" Nyxara didn't respond, but something inside her shifted. The man stepped closer, ignoring the guards behind him. "I don't care what the Alpha says," he continued. "I won't have some weak, stray, contaminating Shadowfang territory." Nyxara's fingers curled slowly into the sheets. Weak. The word echoed, mocked. Her pulse slowed. Dangerously calm. "Leave," one of the guards muttered cautiously. "The Alpha gave orders." "I don't answer to—" The man didn't finish, because suddenly the air dropped, heavy, oppressive, wrong. Nyxara lifted her gaze, silver, not flickering this time, burning. "Say that again," she said quietly. The man scoffed. "What, that you're weak?" He stepped closer, too close. "You look like you'd snap if I touched you." A mistake. A fatal one. Because the moment his hand reached for her, something unleashed. It wasn't controlled. It wasn't gentle. It was instinct, raw, violent, ancient. A sharp, invisible force exploded outward from Nyxara's body. The man was thrown across the room with a sickening crack, his body slamming into the stone wall hard enough to fracture it. Silence. The guards froze. The woman from before stared in stunned disbelief. Nyxara didn't move, didn't breathe. Her power pulsed around her like a living storm. Her silver eyes glowed brighter, and for a split second, something else flickered beneath them. Not human, not wolf, something other. The man groaned from across the room, coughing as he struggled to push himself up. Fear filled his eyes now. "Good." Nyxara tilted her head slightly, her voice soft, deadly. "You should have listened." Footsteps, slow, measured, familiar. The room shifted again. Valor. He stepped into the doorway, his presence slicing cleanly through the tension. His gaze flicked once to the broken wall, then to the man on the ground, then to Nyxara, and this time, he didn't hide it. Approval. Dark, sharp, dangerous. "What did I say?" Valor's voice came, calm but laced with steel. "About touching what is under my protection?" The man froze. "Hey, Alpha, Wrong answer." Valor didn't raise his voice, didn't move quickly, but somehow, within a breath, he was already across the room. His hand wrapped around the man's throat, lifting him effortlessly. "I gave one order," Valor said quietly. "One." The man choked, clawing at his grip. Please." Valor's eyes flicked briefly toward Nyxara, not asking, not hesitating, deciding. Then he dropped the man. Hard. "Get out," he said coldly. The man scrambled to his feet, staggering out of the room without another word. Silence followed, heavy, charged. Then Valor turned fully toward her. Nyxara's breathing was uneven now, her body trembling slightly from the aftermath of the power surge. "I didn't mean to—" she started. "Don't—" His voice cut her off, not harsh, but firm. "You didn't lose control." He stepped closer, slowly, deliberately. "You responded." Nyxara swallowed. "That's not normal." "No," he agreed, "it's not." He stopped in front of her again, closer than before. But this time, there was something different in the air, not just curiosity, not just calculation, something heavier, something that coiled low in her stomach and refused to be ignored. "You felt it, didn't you?" he murmured. Nyxara's breath caught. Felt what? That moment. His gaze darkened slightly. "When you stopped being prey." Silence. Her fingers tightened against the sheets. "I don't want to become something monstrous." Valor's expression didn't change. "If they already treat you like one," he said quietly, "you might as well become something they fear." The words settled deep, too deep. Nyxara looked away, her voice dropped. "And what do you think I am?" A pause. Then, Valor reached out. This time, he touched her, his fingers wrapped around her wrist, firm, warm, unyielding. Nyxara's breath hitched sharply, not from fear, from the shock of it, from the way her body reacted, not resisting, not rejecting, but aware, hyper-aware. Her pulse jumped beneath his touch, and for a brief, dangerous second, that strange thread between them tightened. Not a bond, not fate, but something being built, choice by choice, moment by moment. Valor's thumb brushed lightly against her skin, feeling the rapid beat of her pulse. His voice dropped. Lower. rougher. "I think," he said slowly, "you're the beginning of a war." Her breath trembled. "And I think," he added, his gaze locking onto hers, "you don't even realize how powerful you are yet." Silence stretched between them, thick, electric, unspoken tension crackling like a storm waiting to break. Then he released her, just like that, as if he hadn't just shifted something fundamental inside her. "Get dressed," he said, turning away. "You're coming with me." Nyxara blinked. "Where?" Valor paused at the door, without looking back, "To see what you're worth." The door closed behind him. Nyxara sat there, her wrist still warm where he had touched her, her heart still racing, her power still humming beneath her skin. For the first time since the rejection, she didn't feel broken. She felt dangerous, and somewhere deep inside her, Erindra didn't whisper, didn't guide, didn't warn. She simply watched, far away. Ziraith Duskrin crushed the goblet in his hand without realizing it. Blood dripped slowly between his fingers. His breathing was uneven, his control fracturing. The bond burned, not fading, not weakening, but changing, growing colder, more distant, slipping beyond his reach. His wolf snarled violently inside him. "Find her." Ziraith's jaw clenched, eyes darkening with something no one had ever seen in the Alpha King before. Not rage, not dominance, something worse. "I will," he muttered. But deep down, for the first time, he wasn't sure she would come back. The doors did not open quietly. They roared. Massive iron gates groaned as they were dragged apart, the sound echoing like thunder across the stone-carved arena. Heat, sweat, and the metallic scent of blood slammed into Nyxara's senses the moment she stepped inside. Her breath caught. This was no training ground. This was a battlefield, a pit of dominance. A place where wolves proved strength, or were broken by it. The Shadowfang Arena, circular, massive, carved deep into black stone, its walls lined with towering tiers filled with warriors, guards, and high-ranking wolves. Their voices blended into a low, restless hum, and then silence. It spread like wildfire the moment they saw her. Nyxara felt it instantly, their eyes judging, measuring, some curious, some amused, most dismissive. A fragile-looking female, no scent of rank, no visible strength, a rejected mate. She lifted her chin slightly. Let them look. She would not shrink. Not again. Beside her, Valor walked as if the entire world bent to his will. Calm, unbothered, untouchable. But Nyxara noticed something now, the way the crowd reacted to him. Not just respect, fear, real fear. No one spoke his name. No one challenged his presence. Even the strongest warriors lowered their gaze. Valor stepped forward into the center of the arena. Nyxara followed, the moment her foot touched the sand. A pulse shot through her body. Her breath hitched. Something about this place. It awakened something darker inside her. Blood remembers. That voice again, low, satisfied. Nyxara clenched her jaw. "Why am I here?" she asked quietly. Valor didn't look at her. To be seen, her stomach tightened. That wasn't comforting. A tall warrior stepped forward from the opposite side of the arena. Broad shoulders, scarred skin, and the kind of presence that screamed experience, danger. He looked Nyxara up and down, and laughed. "Alpha! This is a joke, right?" he called out. "You dragged us all here for this?" Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Nyxara's fingers twitched. Valor finally turned his head slightly. Just enough. "Fight her." The entire arena went silent. The warrior blinked, then laughed harder. "You're serious?" Valor's gaze didn't waver. "I don't repeat myself." The warrior exhaled sharply, rolling his shoulders as he stepped into the sand. "Don't blame me when she breaks," he muttered. Nyxara's pulse slowed. Too slow. Her body felt still, like the calm before a storm. She stepped forward, barefoot against the sand. No weapon, no armor, just her, across from a fully trained, battle-hardened wolf. "Shift," the warrior ordered mockingly. Nyxara didn't move. "I don't need to—" The crowd laughed. Loud, cruel. The warrior smirked. "Then this will be quick." He lunged, fast, too fast for a normal human, too fast for someone untrained. His fist came straight for her, and for a split second, everything slowed. Nyxara saw it, felt it, every movement, every shift of muscle, every breath. Her body moved before she could think. She stepped aside, Effortlessly. The strike missed. The warrior stumbled forward slightly, caught off guard. The laughter stopped. Nyxara turned slowly. Her silver eyes flickered. "Too slow," she said softly. A ripple of unease spread through the arena. The warrior's expression darkened. "Lucky!" He attacked again, faster, harder, relentless. But Nyxara moved like she had done this her entire life. Every strike missed. Every attack slipped past her like air. She wasn't just dodging, she was reading him, predicting him. The arena grew quieter with each passing second. Confusion replaced mockery, then tension, then fear. The warrior snarled, frustration bleeding into his movements. "Stand still!" he roared, shifting partially, his claws elongating, his strength surging. Nyxara exhaled slowly. "No, this time." She moved first. The shift was instant, explosive. She closed the distance between them in a blur. Her hand struck his chest. Not hard, not visibly violent, but the impact was devastating. A shockwave rippled outward. The warrior's body lifted off the ground and slammed into the arena wall with bone-crushing force. The entire arena shook. Silence, complete, utter silence. The warrior collapsed into the sand, unconscious, maybe worse. No one moved, no one spoke. Nyxara stood in the center of the arena, her chest rising and falling slowly. Her body hummed with power. Her silver eyes burned brighter than ever, and for the first time, the crowd didn't see weakness. They saw something else, something dangerous, something unknown, something they couldn't control. A weapon, a monster, a queen. Nyxara's gaze lifted and met Velor's. He hadn't moved, hadn't reacted outwardly, but his eyes, dark, sharp, locked onto her like she was the only thing that existed in that moment. Approval, not pride, not surprise, recognition. He stepped forward, slow, deliberate. The arena instinctively parted for him. No one dared stand in his way. He stopped in front of her. Close, too close. Nyxara's breath hitched, not from fear, but from the intensity of it, the way he looked at her, like he saw everything. Again, he said quietly. Her heart skipped. "What? Fight again." A pause. Then lower. "Don't hold back this time." Nyxara's pulse spiked. "You think I was holding back?" Velor's gaze darkened slightly. "Yes." Silence stretched between them. Challenging, dangerous. Then, something reckless sparked inside her. "Fine," she whispered. The next opponent stepped forward. Stronger, faster, more dangerous, and this time, Nyxara didn't wait. The moment the signal hit, she unleashed everything. The arena exploded into chaos. Sand flew. Shockwaves cracked through the air. Her movements became sharper, wilder, more lethal, not just controlled, not just precise, but powerful, terrifying, unnatural. And then, it happened. For a split second, her power surged beyond her control. Her eyes flared. Not just silver, but something darker beneath, something ancient. The ground beneath her feet cracked, the air distorted, and her opponent dropped. Not unconscious, not injured, but on his knees, forced down by something invisible, something overwhelming, submission. The entire arena felt it, that pressure, that dominance. Even the strongest wolves stiffened, even the guards shifted uneasily, even... Velor's eyes sharpened. Nyxara froze. "What was that?" she whispered. "You!" Her breath trembled. The pressure vanished instantly. The opponent collapsed fully into the sand, gasping. Alive, but broken. The arena erupted, not in laughter, not in mockery, but in something else. Whispers, fear, reverence. Nyxara stood in the center of it all. And for the first time, she understood. They weren't looking at her like prey anymore. They were looking at her like something that could destroy them. Slowly. Velor stepped closer again. This time there was no distance left between them. His hand lifted. And this time, he didn't hesitate. His fingers brushed against her jaw. Light, intentional. Nyxara's breath caught sharply. The world around them blurred. The noise faded. All she could feel was him. His touch. His presence. That dangerous pull tightening between them. His gaze dropped briefly to her lips, then back to her eyes. Dark, hungry, controlled, barely. "Now they understand," he murmured. Her pulse raced. "What?" His thumb brushed softly against her skin. "Why you're not leaving?" The air thickened. Tension snapped tight between them. 1 inch closer, and... A howl tore through the arena, sharp, urgent. A messenger burst through the gates, breathless, panicked. "Alpha!" he shouted. Valor didn't move, didn't look away from her. "What?" The messenger swallowed. "Duskrin forces, they've crossed the border." Silence, cold, deadly. Nyxara's heart dropped. Zyreth, he found her. Valor's gaze didn't shift, didn't soften. If anything, it darkened. His voice lowered. "Lethal. Good." Nyxara's breath caught, because that didn't sound like concern. That sounded like anticipation. War, and somehow. She knew. This was only the beginning. The sky darkened before the war even began. Storm clouds rolled over Shadowfang territory like a living omen, swallowing the sun, choking the air with tension so thick it pressed against Nyxara's lungs. She stood at the highest terrace of Valor's stronghold, the wind tearing through her dark hair, her silver eyes fixed on the horizon. She felt him, before anyone spoke it, before the scouts returned, before the horns sounded. Zyreth. The bond pulsed, violent, erratic, unstable, not longing, not love, something twisted, possessive, demanding. "He comes to claim what he discarded," Irindra's voice echoed coldly. Nyxara's jaw tightened. "Then he'll leave with nothing." Footsteps approached behind her, measured, unhurried. "Valor." "You feel him," he said, not a question. Nyxara didn't turn. "Yes." A pause, then, "Good." She finally glanced at him, brows pulling slightly. "Good?" Valor stepped beside her, his gaze fixed on the distant tree line. "I've been waiting." There it was again, that quiet hunger for war. Nyxara studied him. "You wanted this?" "Yes." No hesitation, no denial. Her chest tightened, not in fear, but in realization. This wasn't just about her, this was bigger. "Why?" she asked, before Valor could answer. The war horn sounded, low, thunderous, echoing across the valley. Shadowfang warriors flooded the courtyard below, armor clashing, weapons drawn, wolves shifting mid-run. And across the plains, they appeared. Duskrin forces, an army of black and silver, disciplined, deadly, unstoppable. At their center, a single figure stepped forward. Zyreth, Duskrin. Even at a distance, his presence struck like a blade through the air. Dark cloak whipping behind him, golden eyes burning, unyielding. Nyxara's breath faltered. Just for a second, he looked the same. No, worse, sharper, colder, more dangerous than before. But this time, she didn't look away. "Come," Valor said. The gates of Shadowfang opened slowly. Not in surrender, but in challenge. Both sides met in the vast clearing between territories. A neutral ground. For now, Nyxara walked beside Valor, her presence immediately drawing attention. Whispers rippled through both armies. "That's her, the rejected one. No, look at her eyes. Something's wrong. Something's powerful." New figures stood behind Valor now, not just warriors, leaders. Introductions came not with words, but present. Draveth Kor, the war general, Valor's right hand. Brutal, strategic, terrifyingly loyal, the one who wanted Nyxara gone. Until now, his eyes lingered on her, not with disdain anymore, with caution. Mirakai the Veilbound, the seer, blindfolded witch bound in silver chains, sees fate, speaks in riddles, smells Nyxara's power immediately. She tilted her head toward Nyxara, smiling faintly. "Ah, the one who was meant to die, but didn't." Nyxara stiffened, the betrayer unknown yet, among Shadowfang ranks. A hooded figure watched, silent, waiting. Across the field, Zyreth stepped forward, alone, because he didn't need an army to command fear. His gaze cut straight through the crowd, and landed on her, Nyxara. Everything else disappeared. The world narrowed, tensions snapped, the bond flared violently. Her chest burned, his jaw clenched. Something raw flashed in his eyes. Not rejection, not anymore. Recognition, possession, obsession, Nyxara. Her name left his lips like it belonged there, like it always had. Valor stepped forward slightly, a silent barrier. Zyreth's gaze flicked to him, and something dangerous ignited. "So," Zyreth said coldly, "this is where you ran." Nyxara's eyes sharpened. "I didn't run." A pause, then, quietly, "I was thrown away." The words hit harder than any weapon. Zyreth's expression shifted, just slightly. Regret gone in an instant. "I made a mistake," he said. The entire field stilled. Nyxara blinked. That wasn't what she expected. Zyreth stepped closer, ignoring Valor completely, ignoring the tension, ignoring everything, except her. "Come back with me." Silence. Absolute. Stunned. Nyxara stared at him. "What?" "I will correct it," he continued, voice firm. "You will take your place as my Luna." A ripple of disbelief spread through both armies. Even Draveth shifted. Even the seer smiled wider. "You rejected me in front of your entire kingdom," Zyreth's voice dropped, "and I will make them kneel for it." Her heart stuttered. For a moment, just a moment, the past flickered. The bond pulsed. Old longing tried to rise, but a hand brushed against her back. Warm, steady, present, Valor, grounding her. Not pulling, not forcing, just there. Nyxara inhaled slowly, then stepped forward, not toward Zyreth, but beside Valor. A choice, clear, visible, final. Zyreth's expression darkened. Dangerously. "You're standing with him?" he asked. Nyxara met his gaze, unflinching. "Yes." The air cracked. Power surged from Zyreth, violent and suffocating. Several wolves dropped to one knee instantly. Dominance. Overwhelming. Unforgiving. "Careful," Zyreth said softly. "You're still mine." Before Nyxara could respond, Valor moved. Faster than thought, his presence slammed into Zyreth's power, colliding mid-air like two storms tearing the sky apart. The ground trembled. Wind howled. Two Alpha Kings, equal, opposite, unyielding. Valor's voice was quiet, but lethal. "She stands where she chooses." Zyreth's eyes burned. "She has a bond." Valor's gaze didn't waver. "And you broke it." Silence. Then Zyreth smiled. Not warm, not kind. Terrifying. "Then I'll take her anyway." That was the breaking point. Nyxara stepped forward. Between them. The pressure hit her instantly, crushing, violent, but she didn't move, didn't bow, didn't break. Instead, her power rose. Not explosive, not wild, controlled, cold, ancient. The air stilled. Both alphas paused. Because what rose from her was not lesser. It was different, and it forced the world to listen. Nyxara's silver eyes burned as she spoke. Clear, final. "I am not something you take." The pressure snapped outward. A shockwave of pure dominance. Not Alpha, not Omega. Something else entirely. Both armies staggered. Some wolves dropped instinctively. Even Draveth took a step back. Even Zyreth paused. For the first time, surprised, Nyxara's voice dropped. Deadly calm. "You had your chance." Her gaze locked onto his. "You don't get another." Silence fell, heavy, unavoidable. Then the seer laughed, soft, delighted. "There it is," Mirakai whispered. "The queen who was never meant to kneel." Zyreth's jaw clenched. His control cracking. "You think this ends here?" he asked. Nyxara didn't answer. She didn't need to, because Valor did, stepping forward, standing beside her. Not in front, not above. Beside. "No," Valor said calmly. A pause. His eyes darkened. "This is where it begins." The wind howled. The armies tensed. War stood on the edge of breaking. And somewhere, hidden in the shadows, the hooded figure smiled. Because while kings prepared for war, a deeper betrayal had already begun. War did not begin with blood. It began with silence. Heavy, suffocating, watching. Shadowfang was no longer a sanctuary. It had become a cage surrounded by teeth. Torches burned through the night along the fortress walls, warriors rotating shifts without rest, tension threading through every corridor like a living thing. And Nyxara could not breathe. From the highest tower she could see them, Duskrin forces, endless, unmoving, waiting, like predators circling prey. Zyreth had not attacked. He had not retreated. He had simply stayed, watching, waiting for her. Her fingers tightened against the cold stone railing. "He won't leave," she said quietly. Behind her, Draveth Kor leaned against the archway, arms crossed, his expression grim. "No," he agreed. "Alpha Kings don't siege for land." A pause. His eyes flicked toward her. "They siege for something valuable." Nyxara didn't respond. She didn't need to. Nyxara. She turned. Valor stood at the entrance of the tower chamber, shadows clinging to him like they belonged there. Something felt off. Not his presence, never that, but his expression, colder, sharper, watching her the same way he watched enemies. Nyxara's chest tightened. "What is it?" Valor stepped closer, slow, deliberate. "Walk with me." Not a request. Never a request. The war room was empty when they entered. Maps spread across the table, markers placed, territories outlined. And at the center, Shadowfang, surrounded, trapped. Valor didn't sit, didn't look at the maps. He looked at her. "Information leaked," he said. Nyxara frowned. "What?" "Our patrol routes, our weak points." Her stomach dropped. "That's not possible. It is." Silence stretched. Then, Valor's voice lowered. Only a few people knew. Something cold slid down her spine. "And you think it was me?" He didn't answer immediately. And that hurt more than if he had. Nyxara took a step back. "You think I'm a spy?" Valor's jaw tightened slightly. "I think," he said carefully, "you have a bond with the enemy king." The words hit like a slap. "That bond was broken," she snapped. "Was it?" His voice sharpened. Nyxara froze. "What is that supposed to mean?" "I can feel it," Valor said, his gaze darkening. "You react when he's near, when he speaks, when he looks at you." "That's not my fault." "But it's still there." Silence. Ugly. Raw. Nyxara's chest rose and fell unevenly. "You think I would betray you?" she whispered. Valor didn't hesitate this time. "I think you don't fully understand what still connects you to him." That was worse. That was doubt. Not in her loyalty, but in her control. Nyxara laughed bitterly. "You brought me here. You said I wasn't a prisoner. You're not? Then stop treating me like one." Her power flickered. The room trembled slightly. Valor stepped closer. Not backing down. Never backing down. "You're not a prisoner," he repeated. "But you are still a risk." Something inside her snapped. "Then maybe you should have left me to die in the forest." The words hung in the air, sharp, regrettable, irreversible. Valor's expression went still, dangerously still. "Maybe I should have," he said quietly. Nyxara's breath caught. Silence crashed down between them. Heavy. Final. Before either of them could say another word. The doors burst open. "Alpha!" A guard rushed in, breathless. "He's here!" Everything froze. Nyxara's heart slammed violently against her ribs. "Where?" Valor asked. "The outer courtyard." Valor didn't look at her, didn't say anything else. He simply turned and walked out, leaving her standing there, alone. The courtyard was already filled when Nyxara arrived. Warriors lined the edges, tension crackled in the air. And at the center, Zyreth. He stood like he owned the ground beneath his feet, his presence cutting through Shadowfang territory like a blade. His eyes found her instantly. Of course they did. They always did. "Nyxara," he said. Her name sounded different on his lips now. Not distant, not dismissive, possessive, hungry. Nyxara stopped several feet away. "I didn't invite you." Zyreth's mouth curved slightly. "I don't need an invitation." Valor stepped forward beside her. Close, but not touching, not like before, not grounding, just present, cold, distant. Zyreth noticed. Of course he did. And something dark flickered in his gaze. "So this is how it is," Zyreth said softly. "You stand beside him now." Nyxara's jaw tightened. "Yes." Zyreth's eyes dropped briefly, to the space between her and Valor, to the distance, the lack of contact, the tension. And he smiled, slow, knowing, cruel. "He doesn't trust you," Zyreth murmured. Nyxara stiffened. Valor's expression darkened. "Careful," Valor warned. But Zyreth didn't stop. "He thinks you're a liability," he continued, his voice low, cutting. "A risk." Nyxara's chest tightened. Because it was true. She had just heard it. Moments ago. Zyreth stepped closer, ignoring Valor completely. "You feel it, don't you?" he murmured to her. "That distance." Nyxara swallowed. "Stop." But he didn't. "Come back to me," he said softly. "I won't doubt you." Her breath hitched. Lies. It had to be lies. But the way Valor stood beside her, silent, cold, watching, it made the words sink deeper than they should have. "Enough," Valor said sharply. Zyreth finally looked at him and smiled. "You're losing her," he said. The air snapped. Vela's control cracked. Just slightly, and Nyxara felt it. That shift, that anger, that something else, before it could escalate. Nyxara moved, stepping back, away from both of them. "I'm not something you fight over," she said, her voice shaking, but strong. Silence fell. Her silver eyes burned as she looked between them. "If either of you thinks you can control me..." Her power surged, sharp, unstable, dangerous. "You're both wrong." The ground trembled, the air distorted. For a moment, even the two Alpha Kings stilled. Nyxara turned and walked away, without waiting, without looking back. She didn't stop until she reached the edge of the forest, far from the fortress, far from them. Her breathing was uneven now, her chest tight, her thoughts louder than ever. "They don't trust you. He thinks you're a risk. You're losing her." Her hands trembled. "I didn't ask for this," she whispered. "No," Irindra's voice answered softly, "but now you must decide what to do with it." Nyxara closed her eyes. And for the first time since everything began, tears slipped down her cheeks, not weak, not broken, but angry, confused, torn, because for the first time, she didn't know where she belonged. Back in Shadowfang Fortress, the hooded figure slipped silently through the corridors, unseen, unnoticed. A scroll was placed carefully beneath a stone, a signal, a message, for Duscrin, and as the figure disappeared into the shadows, a whisper followed. Let them tear each other apart. The forest did not feel like freedom. It felt like a trap waiting to close. Nyxara walked deeper into the shadows, her breath uneven, her thoughts louder than the wind whispering through the trees. Every step away from the fortress should have felt like relief. Instead, it felt like something was about to break. "You don't belong there," Vela's voice echoed in her mind. "You are still a risk." Her chest tightened. "Then, you're losing her," Zyreth's voice followed. "Come back to me." Nyxara pressed her fingers to her temples. "Stop," she whispered. But the voices didn't stop, because they weren't just in her head anymore, they were inside her, pulling, tearing, demanding, and she didn't know which part of her was real anymore. The first arrow came without warning. It sliced through the air, fast, silent, deadly. Nyxara's body reacted on instinct. She twisted. The arrow grazed her arm instead of piercing her heart. Pain flared. Sharp, immediate. Her eyes snapped up. Too late. Figures emerged from the darkness. Not rogues, not Shadowfang. Something else. Cloaked, masked, organized. A third faction. Nyxara's pulse spiked. "Who are you?" A second arrow hit, this one laced with something darker. Her body went weak instantly. Poison. Her knees buckled. No, her power tried to rise, but the poison suppressed it, forced it down, locked it. The figures closed in. "Take her," one of them ordered. Nyxara fought. God, she fought. But her limbs refused to respond, her vision blurred. Darkness crept in again, and just before everything faded, she heard it. A distant, furious roar. Two voices, one darker, one colder, coming for her. Pain woke her. Not sharp, not immediate, slow, dull, burning through her veins. Nyxara groaned softly, her body heavy, her senses disoriented. Cold stone beneath her, chains, her wrists, her ankles, bound. Her eyes opened slowly. Darkness, a cell, underground. The air smelled of damp earth and iron. She tried to move. Pain shot through her instantly. The poison, still there, still working. "Awake already?" A voice echoed from the shadows. Not Zyreth, not Velor, someone else. A tall figure stepped forward, hood falling back. A man with pale skin, sharp features, and eyes that glowed faintly violet. Smiling. "Wrong. You're far more interesting than they said," he murmured. Nyxara's voice came out hoarse. "Who are you?" He tilted his head. "Someone who knows what you really are." Her stomach dropped. Before she could respond, a violent explosion shook the ground above them. The walls trembled. Dust rained down. The man sighed. Right on time. Another crash, closer, louder. Then, a roar. Familiar, terrifying. Zyreth, and a second presence. Colder, sharper. Velor. The man smiled wider. "Let's see which one of them you choose. When it matters." Darkness swallowed him as he stepped back. And chaos erupted. The cell door shattered. Literally shattered. Splintered into pieces as raw force tore through it. Nyxara's head snapped up. And there he was, Ziraith, breathing hard, eyes wild, covered in blood that wasn't his. For a moment, he just stared at her. Chains, bruises, weak, and something inside him broke. Nyxara. Her name sounded different now. Rough, almost desperate. He crossed the room in seconds, ripping the chains apart like they were nothing. The moment his hand touched her, the bond exploded. Not soft, not gentle, violent, alive. Nyxara gasped sharply, her body arching as heat flooded her veins. What? She choked. Ziraith froze. He felt it too. That connection. Stronger than before, unbroken, twisted, but alive. I told you, he murmured hoarsely, his hand tightening around her wrist. It never left. Nyxara tried to pull back, but her body betrayed her. The warmth, the pull, the familiarity, it wrapped around her like something she couldn't escape. Don't, she whispered, but she didn't sound convincing, didn't feel convincing. Ziraith's hand moved to her face, slower this time, careful, like she might disappear. You're hurt, he said. Nyxara swallowed. I'll survive. His jaw tightened. You shouldn't have to. Silence stretched between them, heavy, charged, then footsteps, sharp, approaching. Ziraith's expression darkened instantly. Velor. He appeared at the doorway seconds later, unharmed, untouched, but his eyes locked onto them, on Ziraith, holding her, touching her. The air shifted. Dangerous. Cold. Nyxara felt it immediately. That tension. That silent war. Move, Velor said. Ziraith didn't. Let her go. Ziraith's grip tightened slightly. No. Nyxara's heart slammed. Stop, both of you. But neither of them listened. Of course they didn't. Velor stepped forward, slow, controlled, but lethal. You don't get to touch her, he said. Ziraith let out a quiet, humorless laugh. I never stopped. The words hit harder than they should. Nyxara's breath hitched. Velor's eyes darkened dangerously. Try me. The tension snapped, but before it could explode, Nyxara moved, grabbing Ziraith's arm, not pushing him away, not pulling him closer, just stopping. Enough. Her voice shook, but her power didn't. It pulsed through the room, forcing both men to still, for her, just for her. Silence fell. Nyxara looked between them. Then, slowly, she pulled her hand away from Ziraith. A choice, small, but loud. Velor saw it. Ziraith felt it. Something flickered in both of their eyes. Victory, loss, something dark. The poison surged again suddenly. Nyxara gasped, her body swaying. Ziraith caught her instantly. Damn it! Velor stepped forward. Give her to me. No, she needs... I said no! Their voices clashed again. Nyxara's head spun. Stop, she whispered weakly, her vision blurred. But through it, she saw something. Not them, not the room. A vision, fire, blood, a crown, and herself standing between them, one dead, one kneeling. Her breath caught sharply. No! The vision snapped. Reality rushed back. Her body gave out completely, and the last thing she felt was both of them reaching for her at the same time. When Nyxara woke again, she wasn't alone, but it wasn't what she expected. Ziraith sat beside her, close, too close. Velor was nowhere in sight. The room was quiet, dimly lit, safe for now. Nyxara's voice was barely a whisper. Where is he? Ziraith's jaw tightened. Handling the threat. A pause, then quieter. I stayed. Her chest tightened. Why? Ziraith looked at her, really looked at her, and this time there was no pride, no arrogance, no king, just a man who had made a mistake. Because I'm not losing you again. Silence, dangerous, fragile. Nyxara's heart betrayed her again, beating faster, louder, and for a moment, just a moment, she didn't pull away. But outside that room, Velor stood in the shadows, watching, silent, his expression unreadable, but his eyes burned, because for the first time, he felt it. Not war, not strategy, not power, but something far more dangerous. Jealousy. Nyxara woke to quiet. Not the suffocating silence of captivity, not the restless tension of war, but something softer, fragile, temporary. The room was dimly lit by a single flame, shadows dancing across stone walls etched with faint ancient markings. The air smelled faintly of herbs, healing, calming, and him, Zyreth. He sat beside her, close enough that she could feel the heat of his presence even without touching him. Too close. Her breath shifted slightly. "You're awake," he said, his voice low, controlled, but not as steady as he wanted it to be. Nyxara didn't sit up immediately, didn't speak. She just looked at him, really looked at him, the sharp angles of his face, the tension in his jaw, the exhaustion in his eyes that he was trying, and failing to hide. "You stayed," she said quietly. "I told you I would—" A pause. Then, "Even if you didn't ask me to." Her chest tightened. "That doesn't mean I wanted you to." Zyreth's gaze didn't falter. "I know." Silence settled between them. Not peaceful, but not hostile either. Something in between. Nyxara pushed herself up slowly, wincing slightly as the last remnants of the poison burned faintly in her veins. Zyreth moved instantly. His hand hovered near her shoulder. Not touching, not yet, waiting for permission. Nyxara noticed. That alone unsettled her more than anything. "You don't have to pretend," she said quietly. His brows pulled slightly. "Pretend? To care like this?" The words were soft, but they cut. Zyreth exhaled slowly, his hand lowering. "I'm not pretending." Nyxara let out a faint, humorless laugh. "You rejected me without hesitation." His jaw tightened. "I regret it." "You regret it now?" "Yes." Her eyes sharpened. "That doesn't erase what you did." "No," he admitted. Silence again. He didn't argue, didn't defend himself, and somehow Nyxara shifted slightly on the bed, her body still weak but steadier now. Zyreth watched her like she might disappear again, like if he looked away, she would be gone. "Why does it still feel like this?" she asked suddenly, her voice quieter now. Zyreth stilled. "You feel it too," he said. It wasn't a question. Nyxara swallowed. The bond. Still there. Still alive, still pulling, not whole, not right, but present. "Every time you're near," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "It's like it remembers something I don't want to." Zyreth's gaze darkened. "Because it was never meant to be broken," he said. Her fingers curled into the sheets. "Then why did you break it?" The question hung in the air, heavy, unavoidable. Zyreth didn't answer immediately. For the first time, he looked away. "I thought—" He started, then stopped. His voice was quieter when he continued. "I thought power mattered more than fate." Nyxara blinked. "I thought choosing strength over a bond would make me a better king." A bitter smile tugged at her lips. "And now?" His eyes lifted back to hers. Now they weren't cold. They weren't distant. They were something far more dangerous, honest. "Now I know I was wrong." Her breath caught. The air shifted, subtle but undeniable. Nyxara became aware of everything, the space between them, the way his body leaned slightly toward hers, the way her own breath had slowed, matched his. Zyreth moved first, slowly, carefully, his hand lifted again. And this time, he touched her, his fingers brushed against her cheek, light, almost hesitant, like he expected her to pull away. Nyxara didn't. She should have. She knew she should have. But her body, her heart, didn't listen. Her breath softened slightly, and that was all it took. Zyreth's thumb traced lightly along her jaw, a simple touch, but it sent something sharp and electric through her chest. Not just the bond, something else, something deeper. "Nyxara," he murmured. Her name sounded different now, not claimed, not commanded, but wanted. Her lips parted slightly, her body leaned just barely into his touch, and for a moment, everything else disappeared. The war, Valor, the betrayal, the pain, all of it faded, until there was only this space, this tension, this impossible, fragile closeness. As if asking, not taking, not demanding, asking. Nyxara's heart pounded, loud, unsteady, confused, because part of her still wanted this, still remembered what it could have been. Her voice came out soft, uncertain. "This doesn't change anything." Zyreth didn't move away. "I know, but he didn't stop either. And that was the problem." The door opened, not loudly, but enough. Nyxara turned, and everything shattered. Eyes flicked once, to Zyreth's hand on her face, then to her, and something inside him closed, not anger, not yet, something colder, something worse. Disappointment. Nyxara's breath caught. She pulled back instantly. Too fast, too obvious. Zareth's hand dropped. The moment was gone, destroyed. Silence filled the room, thick, awkward, sharp. Vela stepped inside, slow, controlled, every movement precise, deliberate. Recovered quickly, he said, his voice even, too even. Nyxara swallowed. "I'm fine." His eyes lingered on her. Then shifted to Zareth, and hardened. "You shouldn't be here." Zareth stood, calm, unbothered. "She's safer with me." Nyxara stiffened. Vela's expression darkened slightly. "Is that what you believe?" he asked. Zareth didn't hesitate. "Yes." The tension snapped again, familiar, dangerous. But this time, it felt different, because Nyxara stood between them. And for the first time, she felt it clearly, the divide, not just between them, but inside herself. Velor looked at her again, not angry, not accusing, but searching, and that somehow hurt more. "Rest," he said quietly, then turned and left, just like that. No fight, no argument, no claim. Nyxara's chest tightened painfully. Velor, but the door had already closed. Silence, heavy, uncomfortable. Zareth watched her carefully. "You're choosing him," he said. It wasn't a question. Nyxara didn't answer, because she didn't know. And that terrified her. Outside the room, Velor didn't stop walking, didn't slow, didn't speak, until Draveth stepped into his path. "You saw," Draveth said quietly. Velor's jaw tightened. "Yes, and?" A pause. Then Velor's voice dropped, cold, controlled. War just became personal. Somewhere in the shadows, the hooded figure watched from afar, smiling, because everything was unfolding perfectly. Trust breaking, hearts dividing, kings clashing, and at the center of it all, Nyxara. "Soon," the figure whispered, "she won't belong to either of you." The castle no longer felt safe. Nyxara could feel it the moment she stepped out of her chamber. The air had changed. It was sharper now, tense, like the walls themselves were holding their breath, watching, waiting. And so was he. Velor stood at the far end of the corridor, his towering frame half shrouded in shadow, speaking in low tones to two of his warriors. The moment Nyxara appeared, he stopped, his head tilted slightly, and his gaze locked onto her, possessive, unrelenting, dangerous. It sent a shiver down her spine. Not fear, something far more complicated, something that tightened in her chest and refused to loosen. He dismissed the warriors with a flick of his fingers, never breaking eye contact as he approached her. Slow, measured, predatory. "Why are you out of bed?" he asked, his voice low, controlled. Nyxara crossed her arms slightly, lifting her chin. "I'm not fragile." His eyes darkened. "You were poisoned. I survived. That doesn't mean you're untouchable." Her lips parted, but the words died when he stepped closer. Too close. The air between them shifted, thickening with something neither of them wanted to name. "You shouldn't walk alone," he added, quieter now. Nyxara narrowed her eye. "I'm not yours to guard." Velor stilled. Something dangerous flickered behind his gaze. "No," he said slowly, "you're not." But the way he said it made it sound like a lie. They walked together, not by agreement, not by decision, it just happened. Down the long stone corridors, past flickering torches and silent guards who lowered their heads as Velor passed. Nyxara could feel it, the shift, the way the pack watched her now, not as an outsider, not as a guest, but something else, something dangerously close to Luna. "You haven't asked," she said suddenly. Velor glanced at her. "Asked what?" "Why I stayed." His gaze darkened slightly. "I already know." She stopped walking. "So you think you understand me now?" He stopped too, turned, faced her fully. "I understand enough." Nyxara's chest tightened. "And what is that?" Velor stepped closer again. His voice dropped. "You're trying to convince yourself you don't belong here." Her breath hitched. "And?" His eyes burned into hers. It happened in a heartbeat, a whisper of movement, a shift in the air, and then steel. A blade flashed from the shadows behind Nyxara, fast, silent, deadly. But Velor was faster. He moved like a storm breaking loose. 1 second he was in front of her. The next, he had her, his arm wrapped around her waist, pulling her back hard against his chest as he twisted. The blade missed her throat by inches, and buried itself into stone. The assassin didn't hesitate. They lunged again. Vaylor's eyes turned black. His wolf surged to the surface. "You dare!" His voice wasn't fully human anymore. It was something darker, something lethal. The assassin came again, this time. Vaylor didn't hold back. He released Nyxara just long enough to strike, fast, brutal. His hand caught the attacker's wrist mid-air and snapped it. A sickening crack echoed through the corridor. The assassin screamed, but it didn't last long. Vaylor grabbed their throat, lifted them off the ground, effortless, terrified. "Who sent you?" he growled. The assassin only laughed weakly, blood spilling from their lips. Vaylor's grip tightened. "I asked you a question." Silence. Then, a whisper. "The king." Everything froze. Nyxara's heart dropped. Zyreth. Something inside Vaylor snapped. Not anger, not rage. Something colder, final, deadly. His gaze turned to ice as he looked at the assassin, and his voice dropped into something that sent fear crawling through the bones of everyone who heard it. "You touched what is mine." Nyxara's breath caught. "You tried to take her from me." The assassin choked, struggling in his grip. Vaylor leaned closer and whispered, "That's a mistake you don't live through." Then he crushed their throat, just like that. No hesitation, no mercy. The body fell, lifeless. The corridor went silent, dead silent. Nyxara stared. Her pulse thundered in her ears, her heart racing, not just from the attack, but from him, from what she just witnessed, from what he just said, telling the truth. Vaylor turned to her slowly, his expression unreadable. "I didn't need the truth." Her breath hitched. "And if he was lying?" His eyes darkened. "Then someone else will die until I find the one who isn't." A chill ran down her spine. "You think Zyreth sent him?" she said. It wasn't a question. Vaylor didn't answer immediately. His jaw clenched slightly. "Does it matter?" "Yes," Nyxara snapped. "It does." He stepped closer again, slow, dangerous. His voice dropped. "It matters to you." Her chest tightened. "Of course it does. Why?" he asked. And there it was. Not anger, not accusation. Jealousy, raw, sharp, barely contained. Nyxara's breath caught. But the words wouldn't come, because she didn't know the answer. And that said everything. Vaylor exhaled sharply, running a hand through his hair. For a moment, just a moment, he looked human, torn, frustrated. Then his gaze snapped back to her. Dark, intense, unforgiving. "If he touches you again," Vaylor said quietly, "I won't stop at threats." Nyxara's pulse quickened. "Vaylor, I'll kill him." Silence, heavy, explosive, dangerous. Nyxara stared at him, her heart racing for reasons she didn't want to understand. "You don't mean that." His expression didn't change. "Try me." Footsteps echoed in the distance. Guards rushing, voices rising, the castle waking to the chaos. But Nyxara barely heard it, because her world had just shifted again. Everything was spiraling. The bond, the betrayal, the growing war. And now, blood had been spilled, because of her. Vaylor stepped back slightly, his control snapping back into place as warriors flooded the corridor. But his eyes never left her, not even for a second, and Nyxara realized something terrifying. This wasn't just protection, this wasn't just war. This was something deeper, something darker, something that would destroy everything if it wasn't stopped somewhere else. Zyreth stood before the kneeling spy, alive, unharmed, very much not responsible. "Did it reach him?" Zyreth asked coldly. The spy smirked. "Yes, my king." Zyreth's eyes darkened. "Good." A pause. Then, "Let him believe I'm the monster. Because if Vaylor believed that, if Nyxara believed that, then the war would burn faster. And Zyreth, he was ready to watch the world burn." Nyxara didn't stop walking until she reached the far edge of the castle, far from the blood, far from the whispers, far from him. But it didn't matter, because he followed. Of course he... "Nyxara." His voice echoed behind her, low, commanding, impossible to ignore. She stopped, but she didn't turn, her hands clenched at her sides. "You don't get to say things like that," she said, her voice tight. Silence. Then his footsteps drew closer, slow, measured, dangerous. "Say what?" Vaylor asked. She spun around, anger flashing in her eyes. "Mine," Her voice broke slightly. I'm not something you can claim whenever it suits you. Vela stilled. The word lingered between them. Heavy. Unavoidable. I didn't mean... Yes, you did, she cut in. And this time, he didn't deny. The wind howled around them, tugging at her hair, her clothes, like the world itself was trying to tear this moment apart. But neither of them moved. Neither of them looked away. Valor stepped closer. Do you think this is easy for me? He asked, his voice rougher now. Nyxara laughed bitterly. Easy? You just killed someone and threatened to murder a king. For you. I didn't ask you to... I know! The words snapped between them, sharp, explosive, and then... silence. But it wasn't empty. It was full. Of everything they weren't saying. Of everything they were trying and failing to ignore. You should go back to him, Vela said suddenly. The words felt wrong the second they left his mouth. Nyxara blinked. What? To Zyreth, he added, jaw tightening. That's where your bond is. Something inside her twisted, painfully. And you? She asked quietly. His gaze darkened. I don't matter in that. The lie was obvious, blatant, and it made her chest ache. Then why do you look at me like that? She whispered. That did it. Whatever control he had left, snapped. Valor closed the distance in a single step. His hand caught her wrist, not rough, but firm enough to stop her from pulling away. Because I don't want you to go back to him, he said. Honest, raw, unfiltered. Nyxara's breath hitched. Valor, I don't want to let you go. Her heart slammed against her ribs, too fast, too hard. Everything inside her screamed that this was dangerous, wrong, complicated. But her body, her heart, didn't care. Then don't, she whispered. The words slipped out before she could stop them, and the moment they did, everything changed. Valor froze, just for a second, like he was making a choice, a dangerous one. Then, he pulled her to him, hard. His hand slid from her wrist to her waist, gripping her like he was afraid she might disappear if he didn't hold tight enough. And then, he kissed her. Not soft, not hesitant, but not cruel either. It was everything he had been holding back. Weeks of tension, jealousy, fear, desire, all of it crashed into that single moment. Nyxara gasped softly against his lips, but didn't pull away. She couldn't, because the second his mouth touched hers, something inside her ignited, hot, consuming, uncontrollable. Her hands moved on their own, gripping the front of his shirt, pulling him closer, closer, until there was no space left between them. The kiss deepened, slower now, but somehow more intense, more dangerous. Valor's hand slid up her back, tangling in her hair, tilting her head just enough to deepen the kiss further. Nyxara's breath caught again, her body pressing into his without thinking, without stopping, without caring. The world blurred, faded, until there was only him, the heat of his body, the way his breath mixed with hers, the way his grip tightened every time she responded. Like he needed this, like he needed her. Nyxara, he murmured against her lips, his voice rough, almost strained. Her name sounded different now, not distant, not controlled, but filled with something dangerously close to desperation. Her fingers curled tighter in his shirt. You're not stopping, she whispered, breathless. It wasn't a question. Valor's forehead pressed briefly against hers, his breath uneven. No, he admitted. And then he kissed her again, slower this time, deeper, like he was learning her, memorizing her. Like this moment might be the only one he would ever get. Nyxara melted into him despite herself, her body responding in ways she couldn't control, didn't want to control, because for once she didn't feel torn, she didn't feel confused. She just felt wanted, chosen, his. The thought hit her hard, and yet she didn't pull away. But reality doesn't stay silent for long. A sudden pulse, sharp, painful, the bond. Her connection to Zyreth flared violently in her chest, like a reminder, like a warning. Nyxara gasped, breaking the kiss abruptly. She stumbled back slightly, her hand flying to her chest. Valor's expression darkened instantly. He feels it, she whispered. The words barely left her lips, but they were enough. Zyreth, he knew. The air shifted again, tension snapping back into place. The moment shattered, but the heat, the memory, the feeling didn't disappear. It lingered, burned, refused to fade. Valor didn't reach for her again, didn't move. But his eyes, they hadn't softened. If anything, they had become more dangerous, more certain. Then let him feel it, he said quietly. Nyxara's breath caught. That changes everything. His gaze didn't waver. It already had. Far away, yet not far enough. Xyreth staggered slightly, his hand gripping the edge of the stone table as the bond slammed into him like a blade, sharp, burning, unmistakable. His breathing turned uneven, his eyes darkened, not with pain, but with something far worse. Rage, jealousy, possession. He touched her. The words came out low, deadly, final. The room seemed to darken around him, and when he lifted his head, there was no hesitation left in his eyes, no restraint, no mercy. Then I'll take her back. The sky darkened before he arrived, not with night, but with power. Nyxara felt it first, a violent pull in her chest, sharp, relentless, impossible to ignore. She staggered slightly, gripping the stone balcony for balance. Vaylor was beside her instantly. "What is it?" But she already knew. Her voice came out in a whisper. "He's here." The gates of the fortress exploded open. Not broken, forced. The guards didn't stand a chance. A storm of power surged through the courtyard as Xyreth stepped forward, his presence swallowing everything in its path. His warriors followed, but none of them mattered. Because all eyes, all fear, all attention, locked onto him. The Alpha King, the one who rejected fate, the one who came to take it. Vaylor didn't hesitate, didn't wait. He was already moving before the first scream echoed. Nyxara ran after him, down the corridors, into chaos, and then they saw him. Xyreth stood at the center of the courtyard, surrounded by fallen guards, his expression cold, controlled, until his eyes landed on Nyxara. Everything changed, the air snapped, the bond roared to life, and for a second, no one else existed. Vaylor stepped in front of her, blocking her, shielding her, claiming space that wasn't his, but felt like it was. Xyreth's gaze dropped to that, to the distance between them, to the memory of what he had felt. His jaw clenched. "You touched her." The words came out low, deadly. Vaylor didn't flinch. "Yes." Silence. Then, a slow, dangerous smile pulled at Xyreth's lips. "Then you died." They moved at the same time. No warning, no hesitation, just impact. The force of their collision cracked the stone beneath them. Power surged. Wolves snarled beneath human skin, claws flashed, fangs bared. It wasn't just a fight. It was dominance, claim, war. Nyxara screamed, but no one heard her. Or maybe they just didn't care, because this wasn't about logic anymore. This was instinct, possession, rage. "Stop!" Her voice tore through the chaos. Not soft, not pleading, commanding, raw, something ancient, something powerful. The air shifted. Both men froze. Not fully, not completely, but enough for her to step between them, breathing hard, eyes burning. "Do you even hear yourselves?" she demanded. Her gaze snapped to Xyreth first. "You rejected me." The words hit like a blade. "You threw me away like I meant nothing." His expression faltered. Just for a second. Then she turned to Vaylor. "And you?" Her voice broke slightly. "You don't get to decide I'm yours just because you feel something for me." Silence. Heavy, painful. A slow clap echoed through the courtyard. Mocking. Cold. Every head turned. Dreveth stepped forward from the shadows. Smiling. Unbothered. "Beautiful," he said softly. "Truly." Vaylor's expression darkened instantly. "You..." Nyxara's chest tightened. Something was wrong. Very wrong. Dreveth tilted his head slightly. "Did you really think this war was about the two of you?" Xyreth's eyes narrowed. "Speak carefully." Dreveth laughed. "Oh, I will." Then his gaze slid to Nyxara, and for the first time, she felt it. Not admiration, not loyalty, obsession. "You were never meant to belong to either of them," he said. Her breath caught. "What are you talking about?" Dreveth's smile widened. "You're not just a mate, Nyxara." The world seemed to still. "You're the key." Power pulsed from him. Dark, ancient, wrong. Vaylor stepped forward slightly, instinctively shielding her again. "Explain," he growled. Dreveth's eyes gleamed. "There's an old prophecy," he said. "One that speaks of a Luna who can bind or break kingdoms. One whose blood can awaken power even kings can't control." Nyxara's heart pounded. No, that wasn't possible." Xyreth's voice dropped. "You're lying." "Am I?" Dreveth smirked. Then his gaze sharpened. I sent the assassin. Silence, shocked, explosive. Vela's eyes turned black. I needed tension, Dreveth interrupted calmly. Needed you both desperate, angry, distracted. His smile turned darker. And it worked perfect. Nyxara's breath came fast now. Unsteady. You used me. Dreveth stepped closer. Yes. Velor moved instantly, blocking him. Take another step and you die. Dreveth didn't stop. Didn't even hesitate. Not today. The ground beneath them cracked. Dark energy surged, and suddenly, everything erupted. Chaos exploded around them. Warriors clashed, power collided. And at the center, Nyxara stood frozen. Because now she understood. This was never just about love, or rejection, or jealousy. It was about power, and she was at the center of it all. Velor reached for her. Stay behind me. Zyreth moved at the same time. Come with me. 2 hands, 2 choices, 2 kings. Both dangerous, both willing to burn the world for her. Nyxara's heart pounded. Her mind screamed. Her soul tore in two. She looked at them, really looked. At the man who rejected her, and now wanted her back. At the man who protected her, and now might destroy everything for her. And Nyxara realized something terrifying. If she didn't choose, they would destroy each other. And the world with them. Her lips parted, her choice trembling on the edge of everything. Stop! Nyxara's voice didn't just echo, it commanded. The battlefield froze. Not completely, not forever, but enough. Enough for power to shift. Enough for something ancient inside her to awaken. Velor's hand was still outstretched. Zyreth's voice still calling her. The world still breaking around them. But Nyxara stepped back, away from both of them. Silence followed, heavy, shocked, unforgiving. I'm not choosing either of you, she said. The words hit harder than any blade. Velor stilled. Zyreth's expression darkened. What? Zyreth's voice dropped. Nyxara lifted her chin, her eyes glowing faintly now, silver laced with something far older. You don't get to fight over me like I'm a prize. The ground beneath her feet trembled, power rising, uncontrolled, unchained. I'm not something to be claimed. Her gaze sharpened. I'm something you should have feared. Dreveth smiled, slow, satisfied. Yes, he whispered. There it is. Dark energy surged from him, clashing against the light now spilling from Nyxara's body. Do you feel it? He asked. What you truly are. Nyxara's breath came faster, her heart pounded, but it didn't feel like fear anymore. It felt like control, like something inside her had finally aligned. I'm done being used, she said, and then she let go. Power exploded outward, blinding, violent, beautiful. The ground cracked, the sky roared, and every wolf, every warrior, every king felt it. Nyxara wasn't just a Luna, she was something more, something ancient, something dangerous, something unstoppable. Dreveth lunged first, desperate, greedy. His power clashed against hers, but it wasn't enough, because Nyxara didn't fight him with rage or fear or desperation. She fought him with truth, with everything she had endured, everything she had survived, everything she had become. You don't control me, she said. Her voice echoed like a decree, and with a single movement, she ended. Dreveth's scream tore through the battlefield, his power shattered, his body collapsing under the force of something far greater than him. No, this wasn't, but it was. His body hit the ground, still, lifeless, gone. And just like that, the war ended. The battlefield fell quiet. No more fighting, no more shouting, only the sound of breathing, of hearts trying to steady, of a world trying to understand what had just happened. Nyxara stood at the center of it all, unmoving, unshaken, changed. Velor stepped forward first, slowly, carefully, like approaching something sacred, something powerful. Nyxara, he said softly. Zyreth followed, not with dominance, not with command, but with something unfamiliar, respect. Zyreth stopped a few feet away. For the first time, he bowed his head, not as a king, but as a man who finally understood his mistake. I was wrong, he said quietly. The words held weight, real weight. I chose power over you. His voice tightened, and I lost both. Nyxara watched him, really watched him, and for the first time, She didn't feel anger, just distance. "I forgive you," she said, his breath caught. "But I won't go back." And that was the end of it. The bond between them flickered, soft, faint, and then it broke. Not violently, not painfully, but peacefully, like something finally being set free. Ziraith closed his eyes and nodded. Vaylor didn't speak immediately, didn't rush her, didn't claim her. He just stood there, waiting. And that was the difference. Nyxara turned to him slowly, her heart steadier now, clearer. "You didn't try to take me," she said. Vaylor's jaw tightened slightly. "I wanted to... honest. Always honest. But I knew if I did, I'd lose you." Her chest softened, that fragile, dangerous feeling returning. But this time, it wasn't confusion. It was choice. She stepped closer, closing the space between them. On her terms. "I'm not yours," she said quietly. Vaylor nodded. "I know." A pause. Then her hand slid into his. Warm, steady, intentional. "But I want to be with you." His breath caught. For the first time. The powerful, unshakable Alpha looked undone. "Say that again," he murmured. Nyxara smiled faintly. "I choose you." This time, when he kissed her, it was different, still intense, still consuming, but not desperate, not reckless. It was chosen, mutual, real, and when Nyxara kissed him back, there was no hesitation, no fear, no doubt. Because this time, she wasn't being claimed. She was choosing. The wolves bowed, not to a king, but to her, Nyxara, the Luna who became something more, the woman who broke fate and rewrote it, and beside her, not ahead, not above, but beside, stood Vaylor, not as her ruler but as her equal. Epilogue. Months later. Peace had settled across the lands, not perfectly, not completely, but enough. Nyxara stood at the balcony once more, but this time, she wasn't alone. Vaylor's arms wrapped around her from behind, pulling her gently against him. "Still thinking too much?" he murmured. She smiled softly. "Always." His hand slid over her stomach, gentle, protective, intentional, because this time, the life growing inside her wasn't born from fate, or bond, or prophecy. It was born from choice, from love, from something real. "You're going to be a terrifying mother," he added. She laughed softly. "And you're going to be worse." He smirked against her skin. "Good." Far away. Ziraith stood at the edge of his kingdom, watching the horizon, alone, but not broken, because for the first time, he understood. Some things weren't meant to be taken. They had to be earned, and if you lost them, you had to live with that. Nyxara wasn't the girl who was rejected. She wasn't the mate who was discarded. She wasn't the prize fought over by kings. She was something more, something powerful, something unforgettable. She was the queen who chose herself. Hey everyone, thanks for watching. If you loved it, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell icon for more amazing content. Drop a comment with your favorite moment, and I'll see you in the next one.